Now that we've done the very basics of it, we're going to get our instructor up here. So Emily comes from Connecticut Winebow International.
we're we're in 19 different markets, so just national.
Yes, so she's and all of the wines that we taste tonight will be from her portfolio, so she'll take you through these. We're going to be in the Pacific Northwest tonight, Oregon and Washington, and we've lined up the wines I see. They're sort of mixed in between there.
Yes.
Just based on where we believe the best combination is to taste them. So you're going to move back and forth between Oregon and Washington. I hope you have your hiking boots on. We're going to be running lava.
I forgot mine's a little hot for that.
So Emily, if you're ready to get started, we're ready to get you started. Why don't you tell us about what it is that we're sipping in our glasses?
So we have Argyle Brut Rosé in the glass right now. This is Champagne Method sparkling wine from Argyle. Argyle was established in 1987 by Roland Souls. He was one of the first to sort of set up shop doing sparkling wine only in Oregon. He truly believed that Oregon was a premier destination or premier growing region for sparkling wine. So he planted Pinot Noir, Chardonnay, Pinot Meunier, and those are the traditional Champagne grapes. This sees about 18 months in the bottle before it is released and in your glass. So that 18 months of being in the glass, it's really developing a lot of characters. I feel like a champagne class is a whole nother class that you would have to have because it's a really intense way of making wine. It's very hands-on. But basically, this is a terrific example of domestic sparkling wine for a really great price. Yep.
Agreed. Do you know what the grapes that were, you said Pinot Noir?
Pinot Noir, Chardonnay, and Pinot Meunier.
And those are the three grapes that you would find also in the Champagne region.
Correct.
I also noticed that it seems like Oregon.
Oregon. Yes.
Oregon uses the same grapes that you would find in Burgundy.
Correct.
Primarily.
Correct. And that actually has to do with they share the same latitude. So they are globally positioned perfectly for these grapes, and that is why they grow perfectly in Oregon. And they're also on the coast, and that really helps. So Oregon actually, Willamette Valley, which we're only tasting, there's 5 AVAs in Oregon, but we're only tasting wines from Willamette Valley tonight. So, and the secret to the valley is it's protected by 2 mountain ranges. So you have the coastal mountain range and you have the Cascades. And so that creates this rain shadow. It creates a really verdant area for growing grapes. And yeah, I mean, it's perfect for it.
So why did you name his champagne Argyle?
That is a great question. You just, the question is, why Argyle? That is a great question. You just stumped me. I have no idea. No, his name is Roland Souls, which it's a great name. Roland, Rollin, Souls. And I met him. I had the pleasure of going out to Oregon, I think in 2016. Oh my gosh, I can't remember. 2018. Anyway, I got to meet him. He, at the time, was still involved with the winery, and I mean, just a character. He has these long handlebar mustache that was just like, with all the no, American born, but
was he wearing Argyle socks or
didn't notice.
His favorite pattern.
I think it's because the Argyle socks cover his sole.
Perhaps. I think the soles had something to do with it. Yeah, exactly. Yes.
You said that the champagne style, they're aging them in the cork
Yes.
and turning them manually?
Correct. They use gyro pallets here. I think they have, especially with this one, but with their, higher cuvées, they'll do the hand riddling. Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And they're a fantastic place to go visit if you ever get to go out to Oregon. It's such a fun place to visit to wine country because everything is just centered around I-5. And there's tons of hotels. There's great, hospitality, great restaurants, and they have a beautiful facility and a great tasting room.
This guy, Argyle.
Argyle, yeah. And Argyle is focused, they have about 400 acres that span between two different EVAs. They have Aolo, Amity Hills, and Dundee. Dundee being kind of the major area for them. And what's really big in Oregon is soil. When you go out there, all they talk about is soil. And they're super geeky about it. And they really believe that, obviously place is really important, but soil is what gives the character to the fruit. And so they have two main soils, volcanic, which is they call Jory soil, and Willackenzie, which is sedimentary, which is like basically limestone. And yeah, so and they're very particular. They talk about where these wines are grown, what soils these grapes are grown in, because they believe it really imparts specific flavors to the wine.
And Emily, the three grapes, Pinot Noir, Chardonnay, and what was the
Pinot Meunier.
Pinot
Pinot Meunier.
Pinot Meunier.
MEU. MEU.
Yep. And
Oh, sorry. Yeah, MEUNIER. Meunier.
Oh,
Mhm.
okay.
And they use all the same terms as the Champagne region minus Champagne.
Correct.
I agree. Yeah.
Correct. Yes. Yeah, you can.
In this glass is the three grapes.
Correct. Yep. It's about 54% Pinot, 36% Chard, and the remaining is Pinot Meunier. Yeah.
Can you give us the price
Yep.
and so forth?
So it's $26.99 and 12.5% alcohol.
Nice balance. This is good. What did you say?
$26.99.
Are they making a brut?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yep. They make a brut. They make a blanc de blanc.
We should bring that too. I haven't tasted that.
I would be happy to. Let me
Also,
make a
is it
note.
vintage? Also, this is a vintage wine, right? So all
Yes.
of the-
Oh, that's a great point. Yeah. They do vintage date their sparkling wine, which is unique. When you go to Champagne, their vintage dated wines are very expensive. So typically the largest production is brut. But again, Roland Souls founded this winery on this philosophy that can make really great sparkling wine here, and he wanted everything to be vintage specific. So yeah, the brut is 2019 right now, and the rosé is 2020.
Hold it up very well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, really fresh, really vibrant, really clean. You get that, currants and strawberry, Rainier cherry notes.
A nice balance.
Definitely. Yeah, and you get a little creaminess. There's just a touch of it, which is nice, but it's very refreshing.
Great for this time of year.
Mhm. Yeah.
Really is.
And great with cheese, too. I mean, we'll get to the cheese, but good acidity for that.
Yeah, a popcorn.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Some grilled cheese,
Any last questions on this particular wine?
Oh, are we doing Chenin Blanc next?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Okay, let's get the next wine into the glasses, please.
So, how many ADAs are there in Washington?
There's 19 in Washington, and there's 10 in Oregon.
Oh,
So Washington State as a whole produces way more than Oregon. Yes, I love that didactic. That is a great
Really surprising.
Right? Yeah. But Washington State is also kind of a, I don't know, they're a huge grower. I mean, they're just kind of a breadbasket in a way. A lot of farming. When you fly in over just fields and fields for as far as you can see, farming. And
You fly into Portland?
well, in Washington you fly. I
I'm
flew
sorry.
into.
I'm sorry. I thought we were in Oregon. I just jumped in.
No.
I didn't know Washington.
Right. So Washington
Seattle.
State, you can fly into Seattle, but then there's also there's an airport in sort of the area where farming.
Do you have to transfer or you can fly?
Not that I remember. I think I went straight there. Pretty
Cool.
sure I went straight
Very
there.
good.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah.
Someone in Oregon's Burgundy, like same
Yeah, my son
latitude.
lived
Yeah.
What's Washington?
More like Bordeaux. Yeah. hmm
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
No, I can't
And
remember.
the climate is
it was
similar.
Okay, tell us what we have on our list.
So next we have the Chenin Blanc from Le Col. This is a Vouvray style Chenin Blanc, and what that means is it is dry, so not off dry. There's no residual sugar, and it's in the style. So, and Vouvray is in the Loire. I don't know if anyone has taken a French wine class, but this is in the style of a dry Vouvray. So Le Col was founded in the late 70s by Marty Clubb. He was actually one of the first bonded wineries in Washington State, based out of Walla Walla. On your map, you'll see Walla Walla is right here. Yep. All right, a bit. Where am I? I'm upside down. Yeah, there we go. And it actually, what's interesting about Walla Walla is it actually goes into Oregon a little bit. They share an AVA. It's called Walla Walla in Washington and in Oregon. Yep.
That's the second time you've used MBA. What is that?
American Viticulture Area. Yeah. Sorry, did I say that right? American Viticulture Appellation. Sorry, I thought it was area. It's area. American Viticulture Area. Yeah. Yep.
So basically,
It's the
what?
American appellation.
Say it again.
It's the American version.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
very much.
DOJ.
Exactly.
So within certain geographical areas, you would find a particular
AVA. Yes.
Cannot be confused with. Could be confused, but you cannot call something from another area that particular area.
Thank you for that question. And stop me if I say anything, because sometimes I go into wine speak, and I'm just saying things because I'm used to saying them. So please just stop me if I say something that doesn't, you're not sure what I'm talking about. Yeah. Yeah.
So tell us a bit more about Chenin Blanc.
So the Le Col Chenin Blanc. So Le Col was one of the first wineries to start to be bonded in Washington State. Very few Chenin Blancs actually are made in Washington State, so this is unique. And Le Col makes one of the best. It's a really fresh, vibrant, unoaked style. It's great for just drinking on its own, or it's great with lighter dishes. And Chenin Blanc, again, back to the whole French heritage. It originates in the Loire Valley. I love it because sometimes you just get these. It's not necessarily really fruit forward. It's not really a lot of fruit in it up front. You get some minerality to it. I always get wet wool that's what I associate with it, and it's a really nice kind of warming scent.
It's true.
Yeah,
Creamy.
yeah, Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So yes, old vines, a good question. These vines come from 3 different vineyards, and they were all planted, these vineyards were all planted in 1979. So I guess that constitutes
good
old
age.
vine.
I wasn't sure if you meant they were transported.
No, actually they weren't. Well, that's a really good question. I don't know
What was the question?
if they were transported from France, if they came from France.
Oh, the vines probably originally came
Originally, yeah.
from France and some.
But I'm not sure if it's the ones that, yeah.
But old vine, one of the most interesting things in the wine world is a lot of wineries use the term old wine,
Right.
and it always means something different, right? Because there's not a
Yes.
rule, there's not an international rule that says in order to call them old wines, they have to be at least 25,
Sure.
35, or 50, or
Yep.
that kind of a thing. So old vines in one vineyard might be 100 years old, while old vines in another vineyard might be 10 or 12 years old. And it's more reflective of that particular vineyard. But,
Yeah, it definitely, it changes state by state and winery by winery. I mean, I work with a winery in California, Sagazio, who has really been trying to get the old vine terminology. Like, you have to be at least 50 years old to call yourself old vine. Yeah, it makes sense, Yes. So you notice a little creaminess on this. And that is because it goes through partial malolactic fermentation. And that's when the malic acids are sort of converted into lactic acids. And that's just a part of the fermentation. There are...
I think it's your watch.
Oh, it's my watch. Like me.
Sorry.
She's listening. She's listening. Yeah. So winemakers will stop fermentation at a certain point so that malolactic fermentation doesn't occur. So the winemaker here allows for partial malolactic, which is bringing in that creaminess, because there is no oak whatsoever on this wine.
Stroke.
Yep.
So that's what I really like it, 'cause it's still creamy and unoaked. So oaked, for example, an oak Chardonnay, does that also go through the malolactic?
It does,
fermentation? So it's
100%.
kinda like a double whammy.
It depends on
Like,
kind of Chardonnay, because there are some Chardonnays that actually are partial mallow, and but there are many of the California,
the heavier ones.
the heavier, buttery,
Yeah.
creamy.
Those like full malolactic
Popcorn.
plus the
Yes,
oak. Okay.
yes.
Got it.
Mm-hmm. You're welcome. Any other questions?
It's got pretty good legs.
Yeah.
It does, and I noticed that from your glass.
I didn't get it at first.
So,
I was looking, where are they? And then they
So-
They showed up, the lake showed up.
that's a great observation, and really what you're seeing is alcohol. So what is the alcohol in this?
13.
That's surprising. I thought it was going to be more because I even get it a little.
I think even though it says 13, it actually can be up to 14. It can be a percentage higher and a percentage lower. So, and that kind of segues nicely into the climate of Washington State. You get hotter. We're in the desert here in Washington State, whereas in Oregon, it's not. We're not. Yeah. So in this area, Columbia Valley, Walla Walla, it is desert. And they get about 6 inches of water a year, rainfall, which is the same as the Gobi Desert. Yeah. So what that means is that they have to grow grapes that have fairly thick skins that need a lot of sunlight, that do well with a lot of heat. So I have a feeling that, you're getting more alcohol in some wines because of that.
I've heard the
So these are the
difference in the wine alcohol content versus what's on the label. It's also tax related, is that true?
Oh, yes, it is. Right. Because if you go above a certain level, they'll tax you more.
If we look at a label, should we kind of do a plus minus?
Perhaps.
percent?
Yeah. Just, it's a it's a range.
Sure.
Yeah, it's a ballpark. I like that. Yeah.
Sorry, I walked away. What's the general consensus here? We liking this one?
Yeah.
Great acidity, nice texture, terrific food.
Hmm.
Yeah.
You can have weightier food with this too. Grilled salmon. I mean, anything from the Pacific Northwest does well with grilled salmon, actually. That is one of the mainstays of their on the plate in the Pacific Northwest. So,
Yeah, I would say salmon. I would think trout would also be
trout.
really great.
Yes. Absolutely.
They also do well with cheeses. Rabbit, that's another good skill. Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, yeah, I keep.
All right, so we've got
Thanks.
$21.99.
So we're gonna put some cheese and some bread out there. Just a little something to compliment to have with
What's the
your,
next wine?
The
Sauv Blanc or the Chard?
Make sure you get some of the bread and some of the cheese on the plate. Take your time with it. It's all we have for you this evening. And Matthew, if you could tell us about what it is you put on the table.
Yep. Oh yeah, tremendously.
Yes, I saw.
I don't know why they did that.
Cheese accompaniments
Yeah.
for
They're getting a little. I can save that for another time, but.
First one is a little bit softer, semi-soft, soft. It's a cow's milk wash rind cheese that one's from Vermont. That's called Willoughby by Jasper Hill. Right now, when it's a little bit better, so that's a big difference there. This is a little bit more north. This is kind of from the Liverpool area. And this is much younger than your typical cheddar. So this one's only aged about 4 or 5 months, typically by the time that we get it. And because of the process of making it, where they're milling it and putting it back together, it has a very open texture to it, which I think makes it a great candidate for, again, for lots of variety.
Cheese.
To it.
Yeah,
You know,
it's not too tight.
Right, it's ready to party.
Open,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Like I said, it really encourages mingling with other beverages and things like that. And it's not nearly so rich on the palate as something like a long-aged cheddar would be. So I think that's another great choice for lots of fun wines tonight. That should go well with the wines coming up.
Great.
So
Thank you.
enjoy that. That one's kind of like tangy, bright, lactic. It has a little minerality, just a slight earthiness underneath it too. So good complexity too. So.
Matthew, could repeat the name of the softer cheese.
The softer one is called Willoughby. Yeah. That comes as a little brown, and we typically have that one just about all the time. And the Chester we have in is one of our rotating kind of English varieties. So, enjoy.
Thank you. You said Liverpool. Liverpool.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that- anything with Liverpool, I think of the Beatles. So anything
right.
that's fine. It's got to be good.
Exactly.
Is there anything special about the bread?
The bread is just from Pan d'Avignon. They're in Long Island City in New York. We can get it fresh every morning.
Wheat.
Nice crusty.
Anything for please.
Yay!
I agree.
I didn't say what.
Somebody said anything. Somebody said anything.
Wasn't me, Lisa? Sorry.
Please. Who said anything?
Okay,
Please?
so.
Get right into it.
We can get our next wine forward.
Yes.
Richmond Hill. Jamaica and then Richmond Hill.
Like Sam.
So that's the name. You?
Where the hell were responsible?
Are so generous. I remember you.
Oscar.
No, wait. We wait to do the best.
Exactly.
Yes, it was just the other day.
So this is Matthew's Sauvignon Blanc. Matthew's is a premier winery based out of Woodinville. And we're still in Washington State here. They focus on Bordeaux varietals. So we have Sauvignon Blanc, Semillon, Cabernet, and Merlot. The Otis family owns the winery. They bought this winery back in 2008, brought it back from sort of, disrepair, and they've just done incredible things. They have hired 3 amazing winemakers that between the 3 of them have 10 100-point wines under their belts. So yeah, they are. Yes, they come from California. They were making wine in California. So, and a lot of winemakers have moved to Washington State from California because of the weather issues and the fire issues. Yes, so you need job security. This is their Sauvignon Blanc from the Coventry Vale vineyard in Horse Heaven Hills. Horse Heaven Hills is this Horse Heaven Hills. Yes. Horse Heaven Hills. Oh, it's gorgeous. It's stunning. Just rolling hills, beautifully tended vineyards. The secret to Columbia Valley is irrigation. Because we're in the desert, we need water, right? And to grow grapes. And there is the mighty Columbia River and other rivers as well. But the Columbia River it's massive. I had the pleasure of fishing on the river, and it just, no, not fly fishing, just from a boat. So that is the secret, because these vineyards need water, and that's why they can grow in the desert, and Oregon doesn't. So Horse Heaven Hills, this is the Sauvignon Blanc. There is no oak whatsoever. Really fresh, vibrant, clean style.
100% Sauvignon Blanc.
100%. They didn't put any Semillon in this vintage.
Do they sometimes put some Semillon?
They do, to add texture. Yep.
So you were talking about the idea of Bordeaux variety. You see that a lot more in Washington State. And again, does that have to do with what you were talking about earlier?
Absolutely. The positioning. It shares a lot in common with Bordeaux. The soil here is predominantly loess, and silty sand. So it's like alluvial, which is very similar to Bordeaux. And Cabernet, Merlot, they do very well, and Sauvignon Blanc do very well in these types of soils.
On a right, you were saying
Because it sells quickly.
Yes.
All right.
I like that.
No, yeah.
So we're going back to Oregon. This is Saint Innocent Chardonnay, the Freedom Hill Chardonnay. Freedom Hill is the name of the vineyard.
Yeah, so when we tasted this wine when Brian and I were checking the wax, make sure nothing was corked, this one had a bit of a pithy note on the end of it.
Okay.
Across the back of our palate.
Right. The other one's
and he said, maybe if it comes to, it's really cold. I mean,
Oh, yeah. No, this is so much better, warmer. Absolutely.
Brian had suggested
Yes.
texture that comes out.
Yes.
Fruit shows a lot better.
So, Saint Innocent is one of my favorite producers in Oregon. And when I met Mark Vlasic, I wanted to quit my job and sell my house and just move out to Oregon. I just was so inspired by him. No, it wasn't about that.
But it wouldn't hurt.
Sure. Just very inspiring, very driven, just so, laser focused on what his vision. And he grew up in a wine family. He grew up with a father who was an importer and a wine educator. And his mother was a classically trained chef. And so he grew up in the food and wine business. And it's very much, part of my upbringing. I come from the restaurant business. So just a lot of passion. And he started Saint Innocent, named after his father, because his father's middle name was Innocent. and started it in the 80s, and started to work with some of the best vineyards in Oregon, and they're actually featured in a article of the 5 Oregon vineyards that you have to visit, that you have to taste. So Freedom Hill is one of them, and then Mumtazi is another. There's a few others. If you just Google it, it's the 5 best Oregon vineyards, or the 5 Oregon vineyards you must not miss. It's a wine enthusiast article. So this Chardonnay is made from the Dijon clone. And Dijon, the Dijon clone, the Chardonnay Dijon clone, comes from Burgundy. And it is the result of a trip that was put on by the Oregon wine. Thank you. And they basically sent people to Burgundy and said, find better Chardonnay for Oregon. And they brought back the Dijon clone, and it changed the face of Oregon Chardonnay. It just was magic. So this is 100% Chardonnay from the Dijon clone. It is partially, I have to check my notes. I'm so sorry. Sorry, that's what I thought. Whole cluster pressed. So they throw the whole thing in there with stems, everything. And the stems it's an interesting idea, why do I want stems while I'm fermenting my wine? And it actually adds structure to wine. And that's why they do it. And it imparts a little flavors. When we get to the red, that's also whole cluster pressed. It adds a little bit of earthiness. And also what's interesting about this wine is that it's 2018. You're typically trying Chardonnays.
6 years old.
It's 6 years old. And how amazingly fresh is it? Like 18. This is a 2018.
Correct?
Yeah, should be 2018.
So we
Right?
What's that?
Is it 2018?
It's 2019.
The bottle is 2018?
19.
Oh, it is 2019. I'm sorry.
That's
My
okay.
fault.
Still 5 years. I mean, we're talking about.
Yeah, so it is 2019. Okay.
We had some comment on this, or a question about how young all of the wines are. And as I said to him, we're retail, so it's always the most current
Changing.
vintage.
You can still find 18 in the store, I think. I think
There
we
may
should.
be some 18
Yeah.
still in the store. That is possible. I couldn't argue with that. But the point is that as retailers, we've got what is currently available, and oftentimes that is very young stuff. In this case, they must be holding it for some period of time.
Yeah, Mark is not in any rush. He will release the wine when he believes it's ready to be drunk.
So how long could you hold this in? If you were putting it in a wine fridge, how long could you hold this?
I'm sure it could last up to 10. Absolutely. Like with his winemaking, up to 10 years.
And how do you think it might change?
It'll develop tertiary notes that just come with the age. A little more richness on the palate, a little bit more weightiness, perhaps just like
Some more nutty stuff.
nutty is a good way to describe it. Yeah.
It's not as what happens over time as they become less sectioned, meaning that the acidity and the fruit and the textural stuff meld more, so it's a little bit more seamless. Right now, even at the age, it really is. I mean, the fruit is one component, the acidity is another component, the texture is another component. So when she says that it could go out to 10 years easily, she's tasting it right now. Correct me if I'm wrong, but she's tasting it right now and saying it's still sectioned out, right? It's very good, but it hasn't just sort of pulled itself all together. When you drink a well-aged wine, there's less about the a beginning and the end of it, and more about what it is as a whole. Is that fair?
New French oak.
11, 12.
There's about, it's 21% new French oak. Yep.
It's not strong. We can tell something. You get some great stuff for that.
I was just asking, what are your tasting notes on this? Or like, at least like fruit, flavors, because I feel like I'm tasting something and I don't know if it's the structure. It just feels different than like a Chardonnay that I've had before, so I can't figure out its flavor profile.
I get that. And also I think it has to do with the fact that it's Oregon. You know, you associate Chardonnay with California.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Oh, yeah. Right.
So your question was, what am I tasting?
Yeah.
What like,
Can't figure it out.
yeah, because it's a little bit of it's a little confusing because you're expecting, you know, a California Chardonnay style, you know, but so Chardonnay is a versatile grape, and it is going to take on basically anything you throw at it. I think it's quite neutral as a grape on the whole. So that is why you find a lot of oaked versions, because it's like, oh, let's make this all souped up and buttery and big and voluptuous, you know. But that kind of has had its heyday, and there's still great styles out there that have that profile, but I tend to go towards Chardonnays that are less oaked, not oaked at all, you know, clean, fresh.
Chablis.
Yes, Chablis. Oh my gosh, I love Chablis.
The latitude of Chablis versus the latitude of this is Chablis north.
Great question. I don't know. I don't know.
That's the fun.
Yeah, no, it's a great question.
You get with regard to Chardonnay.
In Burgundy, yes. In Chardonnay in France, yes, correct. That is the northernmost part, yes. But for me, I'm actually getting kind of some nutty notes with this wine. I'm getting fuller bodied, you know, it's kind of giving me just a bigger body, fleshier fruit, you know, but it's not marred by, but that's not coming from oak. That's coming from the quality of the fruit. This is freedom. Sorry.
So when they pick,
yes, and then when they pick it, so definitely, and that is a really tricky part of wine growing, because you could have amazing grapes that are just about ready to pick, and the next day they're just no good. It is. I don't think a lot of winemakers and growers sleep, you know, very well during harvest time, because they're just kind of waiting and they're watching and they're, you know, testing and you know,
Baby.
right.
Baby.
Yeah.
and there's also something else that you mentioned. That is a whole cluster fermentation, basically. You know, there are a lot of vineyards out there. They go through individual bunches of grapes, and they'll just cut off the bottom of it, and get rid of the shoulders, or just use the shoulders. So the way that a bunch of grapes is shaped is, I mean, we've all seen pictures of them, right? They're wider at the top and narrow at the bottom. And certain winemakers will take only the shoulders and sell the rest of the grapes, or not use them, or use them differently than the rest of them. What she was saying earlier is they're using the whole cluster of grapes when they put it in there, including the stems. All these things add different profiles to them. So when she's talking about this, we're talking about decisions that are made by the winemaker. Winemakers are part scientists. They're both sides of your brain, right? They're part scientists and they're also part artists. So they use the left and right side of their brain. Most of us don't do that. We usually lean one way or the other. But they're very unique people who create these things. And every decision a winemaker makes adds to this.
Yeah, and it is kind of like a game. It's a game time decision. It's and never, it's never the same every year. They usually have a window of time that they're shooting for, but it's always different. I was just looking at the notes, and these grapes for the Chardonnay were picked in the middle of September. So I was looking for the bricks number, but they don't have it.
But that can be August.
Sure.
It can be early September. It can be late September. It can be early September.
Depending on the weather.
Typically,
I was
around
gonna
the
say,
right.
what's going on in September?
Mm-hmm.
What's,
Yeah.
is the sun shining?
Football.
Why, is there other stuff going on?
No, but it's an interesting time. Summer is ending.
Yeah.
Fall
Jan,
is
what are
coming.
Harvest season.
With the winds and the evening chill.
So our numbers are, I gotta look, 37.99 and 13.5.
If you wanna say higher, no? I don't know. I mean, I know.
Okay, let's move to
Doing
the
Archery
next one.
Summit.
So that was the last of our white wines for the evening. And now we're going to go to our red wines. I can tell you that if you've been paying attention tonight, this is a Pinot Noir. So where is it likely from? Pacific Northwest.
Oregon.
Oregon. Yeah. Oregon. It's like an I. Oregon.
Is there a reason, Emily, that
Well,
younger one is first?
The Pinots.
Yeah.
I don't know. They just decided to do this one first.
Is that how they just listed it?
Yeah, and I don't think there's any right, way. I think they're both fine.
That's how they say it.
Yeah. That is, yeah.
Because if I say it the way I say it, they'll say, oh.
See, I didn't do Pinot.
Like some. You should be out there. You should get sent out there. It's not fair.
Yes, Kelsey was fortunate enough.
Yes.
Yeah. I think I did it in 2016. I'm trying to remember.
Wow, you were one of the old school. I mean,
You went out there as a kid. You were a kid.
I was not a kid.
You were.
I was new to the industry. I had been in the industry, I had been working with a distributor for about 2 years when I went out. Yeah. And
so Oregon Pinot Camp is a thing that they do on an annual basis. Super cool.
Yeah, it is so fun. You basically go to school for 3 days. They fly you out there. You have a big party the first night, and then 7 a.m. you're on the bus going out to your first. Well, maybe not 7 a.m., but 8 a.m. You're going out to your first vineyard visit, and you go to, I think, 3 to 4 a day, and there's beautiful lunches and amazing dinners. But it is just power tasting all day long, and you're walking in the vineyards. It's a ton of information. You meet so many different people, and one of the most beautiful things about Oregon is, and the Oregon wine industry, is how inclusive they all are. They all talk to each other. They all work together. There's no power struggle.
Backbiting.
Yes, yeah. There's no gatekeeping. There's, hey, I learned this and I'm going to pass it on because it's going to actually make this region grow.
It helps every.
Good karma.
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
still. And to this day, that still is a part of the culture out there.
Oh, totally.
Which is unlike other places.
It's unique. And it also makes you want to just stay there. The people are just so nice, and they're so passionate, and just out. It's gorgeous out there too. I'll end up there. That's it's all I ever talk about. So yeah. Oh yeah. Yes. I don't know.
When did you open? 6?
When did this get open?
6?
5:15.
That's a good.
You opened it early, 5:15?
This one was.
It's been open for 12 hours.
Okay.
More than
Okay,
Now,
Armagnac. So like,
now listen,
so like a what?
It's been open a couple
Wet
hours.
fur.
but a
Ooh, I
couple
like
of
that.
things to make note of. What opens a wine is oxygen. It starts to oxidize the wine, right? So what you would do if you wanted to open the wine is to decant it. When you decant the wine, it gives it a wider surface area that collects more oxygen in it. These were open and tasted
Yeah.
them. Really, what it was all about was making sure you weren't
I love this
getting
one.
wine.
And this is the
I think we
22.
were
The 21
successful
was
in that.
incredible.
But two things happened. After we opened it and we tasted it, we put the cork right back at the top. So it didn't get a lot of oxygen to it. Also, once we opened it and it was gathering some oxygen, it was still basically in the neck of the bottle. So you were getting about that much oxygen exposure.
No.
It really didn't open the wines a lot. A bit, but not a lot.
So Archery Summit. I actually haven't tasted this vintage yet. This is the 22, correct? Right, 22. So Ian Birch, the winemaker here at Archery Summit. Archery Summit was actually started in the 80s by Gary Andrus, who made wine at Pine Ridge in Napa. So he had been making the wine there for many, many years, and then moved to Willamette Valley and established Archery Summit. So they have 5 estate vineyards, mostly in Dundee, a little bit in Aolo, Amity Hills as well. And in Dundee, it's primarily Jory soil, so the volcanic soil. The big thing about Jory is that it's kind of porous, so it allows the vines to really, really dig deep to find nutrients. That's the secret to the Jory soils. This is also whole cluster pressed fermentation. So you're getting some stem inclusion here, which adds structure and sort of muscle to the wine. Also sees oak for about 13 months. The last vintage received a 97-point score from Decanter, which was huge. So this is the next vintage, and I'm sure that they'll get some really great scores as well.
I will tell you, I love it.
Yeah. Just keep smelling it, yeah.
How was the
Cherry. Bing cherry, yeah.
one vintage to the next, last year's to this year's? How was the?
That's a good question. I believe 22 was fairly it was great. I don't think there were any huge weather issues. They had a lot of weather issues in 2020. They had a lot of fires. 21 was a little better. 22 was even better than that. Yeah.
When I think Northwest weather, the first thing I think of is rain.
Right, and that is true because if you're in Portland or Seattle, you're on that rain. You're in the rain shadow. You're in that area that experiences a lot of rain because of the coast, the proximity to the coast.
On this side of the mountain.
Correct,
Not on the other side.
but then if you go over the coastal range, you get. Sorry. Well, there's the coastal range and then there's the Cascades. I think the Olympics are a little higher or a little more northern.
Yeah, another question for you.
Yeah.
Oh, I was just wondering, do you think the stems, like pressing it and fermenting it from the stems, lends itself to like ageability? So this
Absolutely.
may age a little bit better?
Absolutely. Well, it adds structure and muscle to the wine. So 100%.
And does it have tannins too?
Yes, it adds tannin.
Right.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We talk a lot about Brambly when I'm
Yeah.
talking about Pinot Noir.
Right.
And this one really shows it. You kind of-
Forest floor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Forest floor.
Mhm.
I always think like, when I grew up, we had a raspberry patch on our property.
Mm.
So you'd walk it, you'd force your way into this thing to pick that. But it's all about the thickets and the other stuff besides the fruit. But then the fruit comes up in there also. And that's a lot of what I'm getting.
Yeah, this is a powerful Pinot Noir, you know. I wouldn't say it's delicate by any means, even though Pinot Noir is a delicate, you know, thin-skinned grape, but it really produces quite powerful wines.
My question is, if you're taking whole clusters in the white wine region, the stems, which do impart some tannins, if you're not getting the tannins within
In the white.
the wine,
That's true. I would assume that they are taking the stems out a little bit sooner than in the reds.
does this sit on its leaves for long?
Well, that's more in the white wine production, I believe. So I don't think so. Yeah. I mean, it's more rare to see whole cluster in white wine, even though Mark Bossack uses it at St. Innocent for his Chardonnay. It's rare to see whole cluster in white wine. It's more prevalent in red wine production.
So, question for you. So, we had Jim Morrison here, who did Northern Wine class for us. Right?
I love Jim. Haven't seen him in ages.
And during the class, he talked about this sort of epic thing that happened historically, where all of the ice melted.
Yes, the Missoula floods.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So up in the top of the valley, there are very large stones, and that's really what you have up in there. But as you move down in the valley, as you get to the end,
you get
all
pebbles.
this really silky stuff. That's
Interesting.
A lot more clay-like just from these floods
Sure.
that happened. So when we're looking at St. Innocent, where in here are we? Because
Well,
we have lots of
St. Innocent is unique because he really uses a lot of fruit he doesn't grow. He is a winemaker, and he does have an estate vineyard that I believe he just established in 2020. Yeah, 2018. And but he's been using fruit from premier growers in Willamette. So his bottlings are from all over. So you've got Coastal Range, you've got McMinnville, you've got Aola Emily Hills for him. But
it's funny because the reason that I asked is because what I'm left with is this really clay-like feel on my palate.
yeah.
But before that, I get these big, intense flavors that I would expect further up the valley. So it's interesting.
Well, and also, you know, you can't just say, oh, this is only volcanic soil, this is only sedimentary. There's actually, you know, there is a mix, but there's predominantly this type of soil and predominantly that type of soil. So I would assume that that's contributing to that. Yeah.
What do you think? 2 questions.
I love this. I think this is great.
How much is it? Balance and the numbers.
Okay, a question for you down here.
Post the fires that happen in various places, I mean, I've seen like the wines like post fire, like, oh, this is like better because it's like the year or two vintage afterwards. How do you subscribe to that? How do you think about those? Maybe it's more a California question than a Northwest question. I thought you mentioned fire before.
Oh yeah, they had fires in Oregon in 2020 as well.
Okay. Is that first or second growth afterward? Was that?
Well, I mean, I think, you know, the wines in 2020 were tough. You know, the certain wineries had to just not produce, or they. I mean, I remember the 2020 Archery Summit. It just was smoke bomb. It was hard. It was very, very difficult. It blew off, but it was really hard to sell.
We got a couple more. You passed on great information.
Thanks.
So go ahead and tell us a little bit.
Right, and so oak treatment here is very similar to, actually not similar, but it's a little more than the Chardonnay. 20 months in French oak. 18 months and 20% new French oak, excuse me. And this is a rich style of Pinot Noir. It's very, you know, yeah. It's weighty. And I mean, that is the fruit, you know, the fruit is happy fruit. And I think it's a great, Pinot.
Really red fruit. You know, raspberries, I would say.
This is deeper, darker. This is power. Yeah.
Currants. And,
Yeah. What would you say the?
This is
again,
gonna win the
same
tennis
question-
match.
Same question with regard to the refrigerator in the basement. It's wine fridge in the basement. How long between for this one and the previous? You know,
I would say 10 to 12 years. Yeah, for sure. From date of release or date of the vintage.
It's already 5 years.
But
Yeah,
one of the
yeah.
things
So
that we
another-
figured out over time is this particular small vineyard site gives you different quality of wine,
Mhm.
right? Different level of wine. There could be a lot of property around it, but to do with the soils that it's grown in, where it is on a hillside, that kind of a thing.
Yeah, and this is these are 4 plots at the top of Montazi vineyard that are really sort of wind blown, so very thin soils at the top here. It's where he takes his fruit from every year.
You said
Yeah.
10 to 12 years from release or
Yeah.
from vintage?
Well, from the vintage, yeah.
That's a great question, by the way. So the question was, how long lasts this long from the vintage or from the time that it was released? Everybody releases their wine at different times, so we always work from vintage when it was released.
When was this released?
Jan, can you tell us a little bit about the vintage and the price? Well, he's asking the vintage.
Oh, I think he knows that.
I'm trying to.
2019.
Oh, I apologize.
He's asking when it was released.
When was it released? I mean, it was harvested. It was bottled in April of 2021.
The vintage is on here. That's
Right.
when it was.
Yeah.
When it was released, I apologize. What's the, sorry, Jan.
That's okay.
What vintage are we?
19.
19. So I know that we served the 18 at Thanksgiving last year.
Nice.
That's as
Yeah,
close as I can get it.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah, but up to 12 years. So what's the math on that?
And how much is
Oh.
CC?
So it's
31.
$54.99 and 13.5%.
It almost smells like a heritage.
Mm.
Yeah.
Janice, how what was the alcohol per?
13.5.
It's a Pinot Noir unlike any other. It is just right.
That's a really good question. So I'm gonna re-ask the question because it's a very good question. Question was, do you guys subscribe to these cellar tracker dates? These drinks from here to there? And the answer is absolutely not. They're a great guideline. They can give you a window of opportunity that's pretty accurate. But there was a dinner that happened with Robert Parker about a decade ago that he had with some of our clients, where at the dinner he reread all of his tasting notes and his prediction for the wine, and he was wrong on every single one. Wine works like this. When you're aging wine, it works like this. It is a slow climb up the mountain to the absolute peak of where this wine is perfect, and then it dies. And when it dies and you miss it, you made a big mistake. You just spent a lot of money on a wine that we thought would do this, and we thought that this would be the optimal time 5 years later, and it's completely dead. Always better to drink wine a little too young than a little too old. So get a case of it. Get what we typically do is get a couple of bottles, and somewhere along the line we're making a guess as to when it's going to be its best. And always want to try to come in there a little bit on the young side, because especially if you're buying it by the case, you can go back to it in 6 months, and then you go back to it 6 months later, and 6 months later after that. And then you can say, is that unusual?
It is not unusual. You're funny. You're funny. It is not at all. No. Not in Washington. In California, it is, and it's even more stringent in Oregon. You actually have to have, I think, 95%, and it be from that appellation as well. So in Oregon, you have to be 95%. From in order. It has to be 95% of that appellation's grape.
So is it different per state of the U.S. rather
Yes.
than?
Yeah. California's a little more lax, and then it's 85 in Washington and 95 in Oregon.
Right. So California, you can just get like white wine and just be like, it's not a losing.
Yeah. It is big. Yep.
Beautiful plum color.
This is what Washington State does so well. I mean, we chose a Cabernet and we chose a Merlot, but Merlot just reigns supreme in Washington State.
Silky.
Yeah.
So this is the Merlot.
Mm-hmm.
Silk. It's pretty intense. Yeah. But it is silky. Silky. Right? Right on her. I said that already.
So it spends.
There's some slippers there.
Maybe. We'll find out. It does spend 14 months and 25% new American oak. So the big differences that we have in American and French oak. American, you're going to get more dill notes, right? Patrick? The difference between American oak and French oak. So you have American oak, you get a little more dill. Yeah, coconut. Yeah. Vanilla. Yeah.
Please continue.
That's it, really.
So the difference.
Jump out. Yeah. It's a strong note. This one? French oak is a little more neutral. Yeah, it's a little softer. American's a little more intense. Yeah.
What else are we using?
American. 25% new.
Looking for so something else in there. So there's a lot of stuff as you delve deeper and deeper into the wine world, you see all these components make a difference. You just said what percentage of you?
25.
So 25%. So 25%
of the
barrels
total
that they use had never been used before, which means that 75% had been used.
Yeah. Which
Which
doesn't impart as much flavor to the wine.
But I like the same wine, or do they use them for like different wines?
I think it varies from winery to winery. They may have a certain group of barrels that are specifically for, yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They would put a Pinot Noir in the Chardonnay.
But then you'll also get into European or European producers that use that same oak for 25
years, yeah. New oak is kind of a new world thing, you know. Oaken old world is it's just for microoxygenation. It's not necessarily for flavoring. Sorry?
They don't get rid of it, they just reuse it.
Yeah, I mean it's cost effective.
How much is a new barrel?
$2,000?
Yeah, a couple of grand.
Yeah.
For one barrel.
Yeah.
Yeah. There are producers in the United States that say, well, it's $2,000. It's the best barrel that I can get. So I'm using all new. And then you get these big, jammy, vanilla, I can't drink them.
Right. Yeah. Not my bag.
This is learned in Europe. over decades and even centuries should be paid attention to.
Mm-hmm.
Do they use
I know, exactly. That's what I was like, oh.
We're looking for the expressions of couldn't care less.
I didn't try this one yet.
Good shit.
Is that the actual name of the cheese?
Mhm.
Good shit.
And, it's all questions. These are great questions, but there's not an easy answer to them, right? So if you're saying how much, I don't know, we're talking about 2-year-old girls, 3-year-old girls, 20-year-old girls.
I mean, we should have done the cab first, to be honest. Cab is a lot lighter.
You'll start to figure it out.
I forgot. I didn't
Just
think.
like the wine. I figured it out.
I know.
What they do.
I'll point that out.
Probably the same.
any?
Okay.
All right.
Any more questions on this one?
Numbers. Oh, yeah.
So it's Janice, it's $21.99 and 14.5.
Welcome back, Merlot.
Welcome back.
The price is good. I wanted to-
It's really great that you don't give the prices until after they taste it. Absolutely.
14 point what?
14. What was the alcohol again on the Merlot? 14.5.
The price is right. Ding, ding, ding.
Well, I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Thank the winemaker.
And then we get an extra 25% off, right?
It's amazing. Just for you. Oh, look at the lamb. Oscar. Yeah, Oscar.
Everyone here.
Yeah, Oscar, get out of my shop now.
That's what I heard.
Listen, if the plate, as the old comedians used to say, Patrick, if it's called Walla Walla, it's good with me. Come on, Walla Walla. Listen, buddy,
So our last wine tonight is a Cabernet. It is actually 86% Cabernet, 11% Merlot, and 3% Petit Verdot. It is 3. So 11% Merlot, 3% Petit Verdot. It is by Matthews. We tasted the Sauvignon Blanc from their estate before. This is their sort of entry level, cheap and cheerful, but also philanthropic line of wines. They donate proceeds from the sale of these wines to educational incentives in Washington State. So there's a little, some feel-good component to this wine. Very, very lightly oaked, 3 months in oak. It's juicy. It's fun. It's screw top. And, Merlot is where Washington shines, I think. And Cabernet it's like opposite from California.
Say that again, because I think that's a really interesting thing to say.
Yeah, I mean, Merlot is where Merlot shines in Washington State. Cabernet is a little bit lighter here. It's a little more cheap and cheerful. You can find examples that are very bold, very more California in style, but I kind of like this style coming from Washington State. It's just easy. It's casual. It's cheap and cheerful again.
Call it cheap and cheerful.
Sorry, just cheerful.
Yeah, but
Inexpensive. Won't break the bank. Easy on the wallet.
in Washington, they may not be trying to hang their hat on the Cabernet.
Right.
But I love to recommend Cabernet from Washington because it's not heavy.
Yeah,
It doesn't
absolutely.
weigh down my palate.
Absolutely.
And it's not so overly done. They are really approachable.
Absolutely.
They're great year round. It's not just a midwinter wine.
Put a little chill on this guy and you're good to go because it's not super tannic. I mean, it definitely has tannins, but it's not ripping your, the moisture out of your mouth. Oh yeah, absolutely. Anise, that's great. Yeah.
That's what I was gonna say, when I think of cab, I think of estate.
Right.
So when you've got the really heavy versus something that's a little lighter,
What are we doing with it?
Which is better? I mean,
That's a question for you,
Yeah.
right? It's a stop. What do you think?
Yeah.
What do you think?
well,
I love.
it's also the constraint, right? If you're gonna do a ribeye, you have a lot of fat. Maybe you want something.
You honestly,
A filet might.
and honestly, Cabernet, like as a grape itself, is not a full-bodied wine. Like historically, like from Bordeaux, it's actually a little bit silkier and smoother and a little more has a little bit more acidity. It's actually Merlot that gives Bordeaux the body and the strength in Bordeaux. Merlot is the muscle, and Cabernet for some reason has become known as has a reputation for being big and but it's not the biggest grape out there. You could get you could buy a Syrah and it would be a heavier, bolder style of wine than a Cabernet. You can buy a Merlot and it'll be bolder and
A
bigger.
lot of it is about what people get used to.
Yeah,
What's in vogue and that kind of a thing.
right.
What we're supposed to.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
have a great point, because when I think of Merlot can't take over Cabernet Sauvignon.
That absolutely can. It absolutely can. Yeah.
What?
Yes.
No, this is, and I hate to use the words that you, this is a hamburger wine.
Yes, I love that. Yeah,
It's a hamburger wine.
totally.
Serve this in your parties.
Yes, it's a Tuesday night red.
Why not?
Mm-hmm.
Smash burger, right? That's the,
There you go.
that's the trend now, smash burger.
Smash burger. I love smash burger. We need one here.
I need one.
Okay, that's good.
They do Syrah in Oregon or Washington.
In Washington, a tremendous amount. Yeah, yeah. Oh yes, and Syrah just thrives, but you don't see a lot of it because nobody buys it. If you go there, you can buy it.
So we've been going back and forth, maybe it was on the lunch.
Possibly,